So I have a strategy called Nibble Bite Gorge. We buy more as the market goes down. We know that it's going to come back to its peak. The market is likely going to be higher in 20 years from now. And it's really easy to make a lot of money, millions of dollars over time. So I'm a long-term thinker in that in 20 years or way less than that, but I'm going to be making more and more money.
Welcome to the Wealth Strategy Secrets of the Ultra Wealthy podcast, where we help entrepreneurs like you exponentially build wealth through passive income to live a life of freedom and prosperity. Are you tired of paying too much in taxes, gambling your future on the stock market, and want to learn about hidden strategies for making your money work for you? And now your host, Dave Wolcott, serial entrepreneur and author of the best-selling book, The Holistic Wealth Strategy.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode on Wealth Strategy Secrets of the Ultra Wealthy. Today we're diving into one of the most important yet misunderstood topics in wealth creation: how to actually achieve financial independence and take control of your financial future. Most people believe that wealth is only for the select few, that you have to work until you're 65, rely on your 401k, and hope the stock market doesn't crash at the wrong time. But what if I told you that the financial independence is achievable much sooner, and it all starts with shifting your mindset and applying the right strategies? To help us break this down, I'm happy to welcome Lisa Smith to the show. Lisa is a financial educator, investor, and entrepreneur who has helped thousands of people transform their relationship with money and accelerate their path to financial freedom. Lisa's own journey is nothing short of inspirational. She started out not knowing much about money, but through education and strategic investing, she retired at the age of 45. Before that, she spent over a decade teaching 18 to 24-year-olds how to become financially independent by 35, long before the FIRE movement even gained traction. After retiring, Lisa spent 6 years completely financially free before deciding to pay it forward, coaching others on how to build real wealth through mindset shifts, investing strategies, and financial empowerment. In today's episode, we'll be covering the number one reason people struggle with money and how to fix it, the biggest myths about financial independence and early retirement, why most people unknowingly outsource their wealth building and how to take control, the exact strategy Lisa used to retire early, including her two-stage investment plan, how to navigate market volatility and actually make money when stocks go down, the power of mindset shifts, how to turn money from a source of stress into an exciting game, and finally, practical steps entrepreneurs can take to smooth out cash flow and grow their wealth. Lisa has walked the talk, and she's here to show you how you can accelerate your own wealth journey. So without further ado, Lisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here, Dave.
Yeah, really grateful to have you on the show, Lisa, and connect with our audience and really share your wisdom and expertise around my favorite topic, which is, what is wealth? How can we create more of it? And how can we, learn strategies that are frankly opaque, right, to most of us? We don't really understand because we're all living in this $400 trillion financial services industry that wants you to think a certain way. And I think the core of it is really all about education. So I'm excited to have you on today, Lisa, and really unpack some of the pearls of wisdom that you have and really help empower people to kind of take their wealth to the next level. So why don't we begin with, telling us how you got into the wealth game, how things kind of started for you. Did you have a particular light bulb moment or something transformational?
I actually started out my wealth journey started when I left for college and I realized I was not very good with money. That was something that was not taught in my home verbally. And so I thought, I need to figure this out or I'm going to be in trouble. So I actually kind of started out thinking, I'm not very good with money. And now I feel like it's kind of become a superpower, which I think is available for everybody. So I started out as a teacher. I actually taught a financial educator. I taught time management, all of that stuff. My favorite thing was talking about wealth. So I taught 18 to 24-year-olds how to become financially independent at 35. And then I myself retired at 45, having that goal. Really what spurred me on with that is having a mentor. I had been teaching 3 years, and the guy who became my financial mentor got hired, and he said, I'm just teaching here because I want to contribute. I want to give back. And I'm pretty much financially independent. And so at 42, I'll be completely financially independent. And I thought, oh my gosh, you don't have to work until you're 65. So that really was a light bulb moment for me. And it was at that point that I decided I'm going to retire when I'm 45. So actually retired from full-time teaching when I was 45 and retired fully for 6 years, and then felt like I wanted to give back, pay it forward to anyone who needs help or just helping and educating people and how to have a better life, how to work with finances, how to grow wealth. And so that's what I do now.
Yeah. Awesome. Was there a particular insight or a book or someone who helped you kind of realize that, when you started down the path of financial education, that a lot of things that were being taught that you did understand were actually wrong?
Yes. So I think that's been the biggest aha on my financial journey, going from not really knowing anything to educating people now on how to build wealth. It was a process of finding what I would call having milestones of understanding, realizing that the typical person who really most people outsource their wealth building. And so me discovering along the way, the stuff that's actually being taught, it's either not being taught or it's the prevailing guidance is incorrect for most people to build wealth. Knowing that, going along and realizing, okay, the prevailing mentality about wealth is not actually correct. So how do I make it so that I can really learn what's true? And books like The Millionaire Next Door, those are the things that I was looking at. There wasn't a ton of information online. There was the FIRE movement, Financial Independence Retire Early, was just getting started. So there weren't a lot of books, but there were some, blogs getting started. So I just consumed everything I possibly could about that and realized that the track to getting wealth isn't the main thing that's being taught out in the world, or at least being advertised, I should say. And so me being able to just build along what I knew to be true and what I knew to work, which was completely separate from what is being taught mainstream.
So, yeah, Lisa, I think really the systemic issue is really all about, the lack of financial education, that we have in this country and frankly in the world, right? And you'd think such an important topic would really be taught, right, to us, even in grade school, right? There should be some, simple concepts like, the man from Babylon, right? Where it's about keeping, more than you spend. Really simple concepts like that should be starting there. And then into college, we should be learning about taxes. We should learn that we can invest in other asset classes. It's not just stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. And for me, the real light bulb moment was reading Kiyosaki's, I took the purple pill, really right when the book came out. And when I saw the cash flow quadrant, the whole world just kind of changed for me. And I said, okay, I've got to become an investor and a business owner on the right-hand side of the quadrant. That was really great. But my question was like, hey, there's no blueprint for this, right? Like, how do I get there? Right. And there's, what are the actual strategies to that? So I think it's really great that you were able to come to the fact really early on and create goals that you wanted to achieve, financial independence, and then you knew it was possible. What were some of the strategies or the blueprint or the roadmap that you really took to achieving that?
I use investing initially. For me, I want everything to be gold standard, which means kind of hands off. So I wanted to put my money to work for me. So understanding the idea that money is something we have to earn over and over again, and wealth is money put to work. So I started investing. For my journey, I paid off all my debt. So I paid off my house, I paid off credit cards, I had a little car, I paid off that. And then I started investing with earnest. And I realized that if I was only going to invest in my 401k, then I wasn't going to have enough money, and I couldn't access that money until later. And so my strategy was to put in money into my 401k up to the match level, and then to put everything else in a brokerage account, because I knew that I was making a nest egg for when I was 45. So I would have a 65-year-old retirement and a 45-year-old retirement. And my whole strategy was having it in non-tax sheltered. which I know most people have most of their money in a 401k, and I didn't want to lock that up. So getting it allocated correctly inside a regular brokerage account that I would have access to, and then assessing whether I had enough using the 4% safe withdrawal rate. So that's exactly, I wanted it really simple, and I didn't want to have to manage and like look at the stock market all the time. I wanted it to really just compound on its own in the background. I love to travel. I love to do things outside. And I still have this philosophy of I want my money working for me. And so that's how I started out, Dave.
Yeah, so it's really understanding what your expenses are today, your overall nut, and really kind of tracking to that where you can get to that financial independence number. And then your future number, I like how you really bifurcated it there. And that's really your lifestyle. And I don't even like the word retirement, let's just say later on, right? Because if you have passion and purpose and absolutely love what you do, why would you stop doing it? Right. But that would be your lifestyle number, right? As the second one. So that's great that you were able to switch it. And again, I think that a lot of the philosophy is just incorrect on how kind of Wall Street goes against that, tracks towards that accumulation model. And it's funny, we were talking about Garrett Gunderson, right? Because he's from Utah as well. And he writes about that extensively in his book. And the fact that if you build towards this accumulation model and then just kind of keep killing, taking out that 4% a year, you're left with nothing, and you're not really realizing that passive income today, right? You're just kind of saving for the future. So you could be enjoying that passive income today, hitting that financial freedom number much quicker, and then also putting in, really good tax strategies as well.
Yeah.
Great. So any other thoughts in terms of strategies that, you've really had to, achieve that number, or, key concepts that you're teaching your students or in your group?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things when I was teaching this at the university level, so I taught all of this financial, independence for about 11 years at the university level. And what I realized, if I only taught strategy, then I had a lower implementation percentage than if I taught mindset. So what I've noticed, people can they can massively grow their wealth by just changing their mindset. So that's one of the things, that's a key component. I feel like it's 80% mindset and 15% strategy sometimes, because if you don't believe that you can do it, you're not even going to try in the first place. And so getting people to the point where they believe that it's possible. And I believe it's possible for anybody as long as you have the correct mindset, or that you're thinking about money in the right way. And so I probably think about money differently than most people. I think of money as a tool. I feel like it's neutral. I feel like I can put it to work for me. Like it becomes hundreds of thousands or millions of little employees that go to work for you. And so that's been my philosophy, is how do I get as much money into investments so that it's growing for me? So that's essentially, I think, a mindset switch for most people. Most people are like, I go to work, I work for money, and then I spend the money, and then we have to start all over again. Versus what you talked about, Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow quadrant. That was an amazing revelation for me as well. And that's when I started realizing I needed to be an entrepreneur on the side. So even though I had a full-time job, I sold designer clothes on eBay for 7 years, things like that in the background, so that I could control my income and decide how much I made. And that allowed me to invest a lot more and make it so that I could reach the milestones that I was aiming for.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree with you more in terms of the mindset around money. And it's so fascinating to me, just like, constantly learning about this topic, and how some of, our attachment to money is literally formed at the age of 7 years old. Right? When we're not even really thinking about, how is money actually impacting me? And, a great way I've heard for people to, kind of figure that out is, if you were to describe when you were 7, when you were younger, money for me was fill in the blank, right? And really identify. And for me, it was scarce. Frankly, we came from a scarcity mindset, and I think that was my parents' generation. mostly where they were coming from, but really trying to make that shift into an abundance mindset and really getting out of the, like, as you say, making money work for you instead of working for it. Stop really grinding, right? And trying to shift to abundance mindset, and let things really appear for you, right? If you're moving in the right direction, you want to be swimming, upstream in the right current, right? With the right people, the right mindset, and things magically appear.
I think that's when people kind of get out of their own way with money. Now, they might not realize that because you may believe that it's absolutely true. I hear people say all the time, I'll never be rich. I actually like the word wealthy better than rich. But if they say I'll never be wealthy, then their mind's going to just go to work making that happen, and they're not even going to try. I don't think that the mass accumulation of money is necessarily like the end goal, but this abundance that you're talking about, Dave. So abundance in relationships, abundance in wealth, and abundance in health, and in activity and time really makes this full lifestyle. But money allows you, if you have time and money, you can pursue any goal. And so the point really with having money is to, what is it that you want to do? What is your unique ability? What is it that you want to contribute? What are you passionate about? And that's really where I want to get people to this place. Like, if you don't have to stress about money because you have it going in, what is it that you really want to do? What's your passion? And sometimes people are stuck doing the wrong things for the wrong reason. And so to have a life where an accumulation of money is your only goal is not going to bring you ultimate happiness. But if it's part of an overall plan of abundance, like you're talking about, that actually brings happiness on all sorts of levels.
Yeah. Where do you think people get tripped up, Lisa?
I think people get tripped up in not examining their subconscious beliefs about money. So you're exactly correct. By the age of 7, we've already formed our opinions on money. And so most people won't question that. They believe that the thoughts that they think about money are true. And so this is especially dangerous if it's a negative thought about money. Money is very hard to get, or I'll never have X amount, or I'll have to work for my whole life. I hear a lot of things like this, and just not examining that. And I think that getting in the room with people who think bigger than you, or who are at a higher level than you, really helps, because then you start thinking, oh, if this person did that, then it's definitely possible for me. And then you can start questioning those subconscious beliefs, because it's just a habit of thought. And our brain is actually the biggest wealth builder that we have, and it takes instruction. So if we give it negative input, it's going to get negative output. Same with positive. You say, I'm going to be retired by 45, or I'm going to be financially independent at 45, or whatever. Your brain's going to go to work on that. So I think the biggest hang up for people is actually just believing the negative things, or their money story that was given to them formed at age 7. And so bringing that to the conscious level, what is my money story? Is money easy? Is money hard? Is money something you have to really, really grind to get? Or is it that, like Richard Branson, investments are like buses, there's always another one coming. And when you realize that there's $3 trillion that exchanges hands every single day, you just say, I'm going to dip my bucket down into that. And it becomes a much more of a prosperity or an abundance mindset. So really just examining and just sitting down with a piece of paper. What are my thoughts on money? And then what do I want to be true?
Hey, it's Dave Wolcott here. Let me ask you something. Are you tired of the same old financial advice that leaves you spinning your wheels? If you're ready to discover the real secrets the ultra wealthy use to build unstoppable wealth, then I've got something just for you. My new book, The Holistic Wealth Strategy, is your ticket to learning the proven strategies that the top 1% don't want you to know. This book isn't just about money. It's about building a life of purpose, freedom, and lasting impact. And I want to give you a free copy. Visit holisticwealthstrategy.com and get yours today. It's time to level up your financial game and create the future you deserve.
Yeah, that's really spot on, Lisa. And I'd really like to emphasize that for the listeners out there, right? This is such a key aspect of really changing your entire wealth trajectory, right? And this requires deep work. So you might be driving in a car right now, listening to this episode, or at the gym or something like that. But you could do yourself a massive favor and actually do some of this deep work, as Lisa's mentioning here, by, going to a new environment, setting aside some time and really thinking through what your money story was, and then changing it to what it is. And you can actually do that. This is a really great example someone did in our mastermind community. Was we had finished an exercise to actually go through that process and, do some deep thinking and really kind of uncover that. And then in the process of creating the new one, we were coming up with facts that would really support the new mindset around abundance, wealth creation. Money is easy. Money flows to me. I've always made money. I've always had money. I've always figured things out. Things always work for me, right? And kind of creating that. And then he was actually able to plug it into AI and created a song out of it. So now it's one of the affirmation things that, he does actually every day, every week, to just money is flowing, it's abundant, and really change that. And, this gentleman grew up in a different country. And, when I talk about scarcity, I mean, this was a whole different level of scarcity. Right, that he had, and to trying to overcome that. So he's been making amazing progress. But this is such a pivotal thing that people can really transform, I think, the trajectory of their wealth if you actually sit down and do this deep work.
And Dave, the people who are wealthy think of money as a game, and it's fun in general. It's a challenge. It's something they want to take on. People who are more stuck in a poverty or a scarcity mentality, or money is hard. It's kind of the opposite. It's two ends of a spectrum, but it's the same thing. So how can you make it a game? What are little goals that you can do? How do you make this? My financial mentor and myself and a lot of people that I know who are very wealthy believe that money is a game. And if you're listening to this and you say, it is not a game for me right now because it's stressful, that would be an indicator. How can you change that mindset? How can you do little things, starting out with little things to make money fun, even rewarding yourself for doing things? But teaching your brain that money is fun or money is a game actually completely changes it. And you're not competing against the whole world. You're just your own best version of what you've got, no matter where you're at right now. What's the next level for you? What would you love to see? And then rewarding yourself for that, and just teaching your brain the money is actually fun. This is a challenge that you're taking on to stretch yourself. And it's where do you want to be financially? And then breaking down that. And as you say, doing the deep work with it, it massively changes how you think about money.
Yeah. And what's coming to mind for me, right, is evidence about how this can really work. It really at a macro level is, how many stories have we heard about people who've won the lottery?
Yeah.
Right. They're playing Powerball, and they probably shouldn't even be playing Powerball. But, the majority of those individuals end up finding themselves actually worse off, within a few years later after winning some massive amount. And it's all because they don't have, the financial education or the mindset to actually keep it. And another thing that we've seen in the government, I mean, this is another really interesting macroeconomic indicator, is that, when the government put out all of that PPP stimulus money, they actually now have data to show that, lower economic folks, right, who are receiving a lot of this, stimulus money and everything, basically just spent it because they didn't really know what else to do with it. And all of those funds actually aggregate to the top, with the billionaires and multimillionaires who actually know how to leverage it, and they've built their balance sheets. So it's quite interesting to see that data points to really kind of prove the point there.
Yeah, I love that. With the education, what I see, the best education that parents, because you talk about this generation, the most education I see is pay off debt and put your money in a savings account. And at the time this was happening, we were getting less than 1% in a savings account. That's not actually money put to work. So investing it in some kind of vehicle. And I think, Dave, the shift comes with someone who's won a Powerball. It's short-term thinking versus long-term thinking. And people who are generating wealth and compounding wealth are definitely thinking long-term. So a stimulus check, I'm going to go out and I'm going to spend this right now versus I'm going to invest this and this is going to pay me back proceeds for the rest of my life. Being able to think more long-term, even just starting with even a high yield savings account for emergency savings, that trains your brain to reward yourself. When I first started paying off debt, honestly, I felt like I was burning money in my driveway because it felt like it was going into a big black hole because I couldn't see the immediate rewards of that. And I had to train myself to think long term. So what is my ultimate goal? It's to pay off all of my debt. Even though it feels like I'm throwing this away because I can't spend it right now, I had to train myself when I, in my early 20s to think differently about money, which is long term. And so now my little dollars are having baby dollars and grandbaby dollars, and they just keep compounding versus me having a one-time, thrill from spending. And maybe you do, 20, 80% or whatever, but training yourself to think more long-term, I think is definitely going to be beneficial.
Yeah. Lisa, can you give us some practical examples of how you can put some of these strategies and tactics to work?
Yeah. An immediate thing that you can do is go into your 401k and allocate it correctly. Most people are put into an age-based retirement, which puts you in especially when you're young, you want to have, I would find an index, a low cost index for maybe the S&P, and put your money in that. You're going to have a higher growth. You're going to have a higher rate of return. It's going to compound. Often when I go in with clients, they have a 3 to 6% overall return while the market is returning 30%. So they think, oh, wow, I'm earning so much money because I'm making 30%, but then they're paying their financial planner 3 to 6%, and that's what they're earning. So at the end of the day, they're actually not making any money. So maybe taking personal responsibility and not outsourcing everything and learning, educating, as you say, educating yourself and saying, what is my 401k actually doing? And instead of turning a blind eye to it, I would say practical advice is make that grow, get up to your matching, and then open a brokerage account and you can invest in index funds. And that is for the average person who doesn't have any financial education, you could become financially independent just doing that.
Yeah. According to Spiva, 88% of advisors aren't even beating the S&P 500, right? So some of these, auto, right, basically allocators into the market can outperform with a fraction of the fees if that's part of your equity strategy as well. We also like to invest in private equity assets, right, that provide that three-dimensional return where you can get passive income now, tax efficiency, and then forced appreciation in the asset as well to diversify. But also talk to us a little bit about some strategies. We have a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs in the community. Any tactical strategies, when it comes to, running businesses and how they manage cash flow? I know many people have just different businesses and it can be kind of, crazy all the way around, right? With cash flow, or you've got ups and downs or different cycles. Mm-hmm. Any philosophies there?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest struggle for entrepreneurs. And so what I actually recommend for the ups and downs is actually creating a central nervous system savings account so that you always have a certain amount of money in there so that you can relax and know I've got my operating expenses covered. I've got everything. And this would be uninvested. So this would be in a high yield savings account. My philosophy is that we want to have it, aside from an emergency savings, we want to have everything working for us. We want to have everything invested. With entrepreneurs, what I have found is there's a number most people are comfortable with, and if they can just set that aside, it allows them, their central nervous system to relax, and the ups and downs aren't going to be as stressful as entrepreneurs are managing a lot of things all at the same time. And so basically kind of relaxing the financial or the money side of that really helps for them to focus and put things into place. So I love to have a central nervous system account, and literally it's just money set aside so that your brain knows, okay, we're cool with money. Now I can just focus on business strategies.
Wow, I really love how you label it that is a central nervous system account, because that's, essentially, right, our brain is being hijacked, right, into our primal state all the time, when those limiting beliefs are coming up, or, whatever's happening in your life, you immediately go back to that, scarcity and protection, fight or flight. And especially as entrepreneurs, that literally happens to us, almost multiple times a day, right? Where, things are great, then things are like, oh my gosh, the sky is falling down, but really trying to manage. So it's like, okay, if you could solve this problem by really saying, okay, well, what is that number? Maybe that number is saying I've got 10% liquidity in my overall portfolio, and that is completely accessible. Should, a medical event come up, maybe I can't work in the business or something like that, that allows you to calm down. So I really love that, like taking over, control of your nervous system, right? So we can move more into a flow state and not go primal. Really great. Anything else you can think of really on the entrepreneurial side in terms of, tactics or strategies that you recommend?
What I found is entrepreneurs are generally quick starts. So when they find out, and as you've talked, our minds are constantly being hijacked. For the money side of it, really, I feel like if you can have the one thing that really, since we're on this topic of central nervous system, I find that some entrepreneurs really don't know their numbers and they have outsourced that. So one of the biggest things, Dave, you talk about financial empowerment. One of the biggest things you can do is have at least a copy of or review the numbers. So our brains are going to go into this primal state. If I don't know exactly, it feels like they're kind of being chased by a wild animal. If I don't know my numbers, at least have some kind of, my hands on these numbers, then I'm just going to be running and running and running. And then thinking, how come I don't have more money in my bank account? Or how come I don't have more money in my investments? And it really feels like most entrepreneurs are being chased by a wild animal if they don't have some kind of connection to the numbers of their business. So I'm not saying that you should crunch those yourselves, because you usually have somebody else who does that for you. But reviewing those on a regular basis, I would say monthly basis, and having the central nervous system account is going to make it so that you don't go primal. Going primal is probably the worst thing for your business and your health and your abundance. And so when we outsource everything, then we lose touch with that, and just looking at the numbers and seeing where you're at kind of grounds you. And so from that point, you can make really good decisions. And I find that people make the best decisions if they at least are reviewing their numbers and not saying, oh, the accounting department is taking care of that. It really makes it so that you're not running from something and you're actually steering the ship instead of out swimming in the ocean.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that really got me frustrated with the equities markets was 2000, 2008, right, going through some of these big crises. And then, I still never forget, to this day, just being at the gym first thing in the morning and just watching like a sea of red and just feeling helpless, right? Because you had no control over what was going on. And yet we just saw it again, right, with NVIDIA and, like 500 billion, and market cap was literally just wiped out, right, overnight, when it seemed that all the fundamentals were great, everything was strong, right? So how do you, advise people to really navigate through all of this uncertainty, right? We've had this polarizing election come up. People don't know what's going on with the administration, right? It just seems like there's more uncertain times than ever. Although I guess in reality, right, life has always been uncertain. That's the only certain thing. But how do you recommend people, really from a mindset perspective as well as a strategy perspective, just navigate in uncertain times?
I love this question, Dave. So I actually love red in a portfolio. I know I'm going to make more money when the market goes down. So giving you an example from when I was working full time, I worked with two gentlemen who decided that they were going to exit the market when everything got stressful. And they said, I'm losing my life savings. And then they made that true because they sold at the bottom of the market. What I teach and what I do on a personal basis is there's always cycles in the market. And you name some of them. We could also throw in the COVID and then the recession of 2022. So when the market goes down, literally, I love the equities market for this because it's so cyclical, meaning that you're going to see the same cycles over and over again. So I actually teach all of my students, all of my mastermind students, we buy when the market's down. So I have a strategy called Nibble Bite Gorge. We buy more as the market goes down. We know that it's going to come back to its peak. The market is likely going to be higher in 20 years from now. And it's really easy to make a lot of money, millions of dollars over time. So I'm a long-term thinker in that in 20 years or way less than that, but I'm going to be making more and more money. And so do I care what the market is doing today? If the fundamentals are awesome, then we go into it when it's low. So instead of thinking the market's following, I'm losing value, I think, wow, everything's just gone on sale. And I've made money every single time the market goes down using this strategy. So if the market goes up, I'm investing. If the market goes down, I'm investing even more. So I make money whether the market goes up or down. It really doesn't matter to me. If it goes sideways, that gets a little tricky, to be honest. But if the market's going up or down and it's driven by uncertainty and fear, all I have to do is wait. And when my mom starts talking about buying flour for her pantry because everything on the news is that the market's red, that's my signal to go in really hard. So usually when the market's on the evening news, it means that you should be buying instead of selling, even if it's just investing to a 401k. If you're an entrepreneur, definitely investing into what you're talking about with private equity or the stock market. I feel like the stock market is just giving us opportunities to make money, but you have to think about it differently, and it's counterintuitive. So if the market's falling, most people are going to go primal and think fear. I think I'm just going to be patient. And if the market's, a recession officially doesn't start until the market is negative 20%. So once the market is there, then I get interested and I start paying attention, and I'm going to buy all the way down that V and all the way back up. Use an example from 2008, Warren Buffett bought Wells Fargo stock, was selling at 75 at the peak. It goes down to 750. He backs up the truck. He loads up as many stocks as he can, and then it goes right back up to 75. That's how you build wealth.
Yeah, much more of an active trading.
Only when the market goes down. Otherwise, it's set on auto invest.
Yeah. No, interesting. And I mean, really mindset is probably, one of the number one or number two reasons, right, why people lose in the market, right, over time. Yeah. And then also, I think the other big factor people forget to realize is those outlier years that bring down your cumulative returns all the way down. Right. And then to try to get back up to where you were, right, it takes that much more work. So that can be challenging as well. But managing your mindset, I would also throw into navigating uncertainty, right, and kind of creating the plan rather than, being reactive to it.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Lisa, if you could give just one piece of advice to the audience about how they could accelerate their wealth trajectory, what would it be?
I would say kind of like what we touched on earlier, if you are doing any sort of a tracking, I think that you having your hands on the numbers and your mind in the numbers will actually make it so that you can reach financial independence, I would say 3 years earlier than you would if you don't, sometimes up to 7 years. If people know and they've empowered themselves, just knowing your numbers and where you want to be and having your fingers on that and your brain starts to basically work and be creative. And I think we're only limited by our own creativity. So really empowering yourself, educating yourself is by far, and then working with your mindset like we talked about earlier. I think those are the biggest things that you can do.
Yeah, great. Well, really appreciate you coming on the show today, Lisa. If people would like to reach out and connect with you to learn more about your training or just connect with you, what's the best place?
LisaSmith.com.
Simple enough. We'll make sure to put that in the show notes as well. And thanks again for your time.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Wealth Strategy Secrets. If you'd like to get a free copy of the book, go to holisticwealthstrategy.com. That's holisticwealthstrategy.com. If you'd like to learn more about upcoming opportunities at Pantheon, please visit pantheoninvest.com. That's pantheoninvest.com.